Well, it's been 13 years since the tragedy in Columbine, almost 6 years since Virginia Tech, and now we all mourn for the massacre that occurred in Connecticut last Friday. We cannot continue to be passive when the only person who's armed in a school shooting situation is the shooter himself, the psychopath.
Yes, but I mean, think about this.
That we set up.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What I'm suggesting is that we have campus responders, 2 or 3 volunteers that are on the staff, whether administrators or teachers or staff members, hopefully maybe prior military, prior law enforcement, but people who are trained, who will be armed, and when the first shot is fired on the next campus, they can respond and meet lethal force with lethal force.
Dennis, a lot of studies have been done that when you have more guns in people's hands, so many accidents happen, misfires, people get a hold of these guns, even if they try to put them in a safe place and lock them up, that it only turns to more violence. I mean, how would you actually control or prevent something like that from happening if you introduce weapons inside of a school?
Well, by taking safety measures. First, you make sure that those who are your campus responders are trained. Secondly, you make sure that the weapons are not easily accessible. I mean, there are metal containers that require a code before they can be opened, so we can secure the weapon. But what we can't do is just allow us to continue to take a passive approach. The assault weapon that was used in Connecticut is already banned in Connecticut. The teachers already were trained in lockdown. That's a passive response. We owe it to our children and our educators to ensure that we have the ability to respond in every school with lethal force in an event of such a shooting in the future. You know,
there's a public health specialist at Harvard who's written a book on gun violence, and he says that children ages 5 to 14 in this country 13 times is likely to be murdered with guns than children in other industrialized countries. But most of these deaths, these killings take place in neighborhoods, in homes. It's not in the schools. So are you really directing your proposed solution, to the right place?
Well, this isn't about a gun ban. There's over 250 million guns already in circulation in the USA. That bell has already been rung. We're focusing on what happens occasionally in our schools and what can be done to protect our children and their educators in the event that this happens again, which is inevitable. We cannot continue to have the only armed person on the premises of a school be the mass killer. And we can't afford to put police in every campus. There's a 1 in a million chance this is going to happen, but if we have volunteers who are trained and prepared to respond with lethal force, then we can lessen the number of casualties that will occur in the future.
Who would be responsible for this training and this vetting of these armed people in the schools? Who do you propose would do that?
Well, I think local law enforcement. I mean, presently, when something happens like this, we call 911 and there's a 5 to 10 minute delay before the police arrive. Seconds count when there's that kind of delay. And so the police can help provide the training, the updated training. We need regular review and practice so that whoever is volunteering as the campus responder, and this is not a mandatory thing, but whoever does that is as prepared as possible, and no one can be fully prepared for the mental stress that occurs in such a situation as being confronted with a killer.
I'm curious, have you gotten much support for this idea, for this notion? Are there people who feel like this is a good idea who are backing you?
Oh, there's many people. I was called by one teacher in Southern Oregon on Saturday morning, and he said, I want you to know, I've been carrying a pistol for years on campus. I know of a principal who's recently retired who also concealed carried for years because he wasn't going to let what happened in Columbine happen in his school.